The role of strength in the hero's journey. There comes a moment in every true hero's journey when brute force, clever strategy, and all the tools of the outer world just aren't enough. That's where the strength card steps in, not as a shout, but as a whisper. Up until now, the hero's been wrestling dragons, climbing mountains, trying to outsmart fate with sheer will. But this card turns the mirror inward. Here, courage isn't about killing the beast. It's about sitting with it, listening to it breathe, maybe even petting its mane. This is the sacred pause that demands inner power, not domination. It's the first step into the realm of self-awareness. When the strength card appears, it signals that it's time to stop fighting and start feeling. Think about that. The very instincts that used to be dangerous are now the key to transformation. We're no longer talking about conquering kingdoms. We're talking about taming lions inside the psyche. The ego starts to realize it's not the king of the jungle after all. Something deeper is calling. Something ancient. It smells like instinct, but it speaks the language of the divine feminine. And the only way through? Relating to that inner wilderness with compassion, not control. The traditional hero's path, so often fueled by logos, now bows to the power of eros. That doesn't mean romance, but the life force itself, the wild, sensual current that animates the body and the dream. In this stage, the feminine principle becomes the guide. Not weak, not passive, but wise enough to know that true self-mastery begins where the noise ends. That's why the woman in the strength card doesn't wear armor. She wears softness, and yet she subdues what steel never could. Through presence alone, she redirects psychic energy. This part of the journey can feel like confusion at first. You've trained for battle, and now life asks for surrender? But don't mistake surrender for defeat. This is the initiation into psychic integration. You're not suppressing fear or rage anymore. You're learning their names. You're finding the balance between instinct and intuition, between the animal and the angel within. Start by journaling what triggers you the most this week. That's your lion. Watch how it growls. Then imagine speaking to it like a friend who's just scared. That's your practice. This is where most people turn back. It's easier to fight monsters than befriend them. But if you sit long enough with the tension, you'll feel something shift. The beast softens. The breath deepens. The journey transforms from survival to self-development. And right at that threshold, just beyond the taming of the outer world, another figure appears, not armored, not loud, but holding the very key to your unconscious power. The archetype of the anima. The woman in the strength card isn't just a gentle figure stroking a lion. She's a symbol of the anima, the hidden feminine within the masculine psyche. Carl Jung taught that every man carries this image deep in his unconscious, a reflection of emotion, intuition, and relational depth that balances the rational force of ego. In the tarot, this archetype doesn't shout or demand. She guides. She doesn't force change, she invites it. And in doing so, she becomes a bridge, not just to the lion, but to a forgotten part of the self. The anima isn't merely a pretty face in a dream. It's a psychic compass, pointing toward transformation. And ignoring her call? That's where emotional repression, toxic masculinity, or spiritual paralysis creep in. Men especially are taught to deny the feminine principle, labeling it weak or irrational. But when you suppress the anima, you lose your ability to relate deeply, not just to others, but to your own instincts and emotions. The anima teaches presence. She asks you to feel without flinching. Unlike the masculine magician, who channels the logos, the logic, the structure, the anima channels eros. She speaks in dreams, in symbols, in feelings you can't quite name. And yet, she holds the key to psychic integration. This is where myth comes alive. Think of Psyche navigating the underworld, or Inanna descending into the depths. The anima doesn't just appear during peace. She shows up when things fall apart, offering not a ladder out, but a hand to hold as you go inward. Real courage is saying yes to that journey. Practical application? Pay attention to your dreams, especially recurring images of women, animals, or wild nature. That's your unconscious trying to speak. Write them down. Don't analyze them right away, just listen. Let them live for a while. Engage with art, music, or poetry that stirs something ancient in you. These are not distractions, they're invitations from your soul. Reading Clarissa Pinkola Estes or Marion Woodman can help illuminate this terrain. Their work is soaked in the wisdom of the feminine. The anima doesn't tame the lion by force, she transmutes it. Through presence, through trust, through compassion. She doesn't seek to destroy the primal, she seeks to befriend it. This is what makes her powerful. Her magic is not about command, but connection. And through her a deeper strength emerges, the kind that can sit beside fear, rage, or desire without flinching. And just when the ego thinks it has things figured out, she leads us into the heart of the wild. Symbolism of the lion and the feminine power. The lion in the strength card roars with raw instinct, a living embodiment of our primal drives, rage, sexuality, hunger, fear. But unlike a dragon to be slain, this beast is met with an open hand. That's the genius of this arcana. It flips the script. The woman doesn't dominate. She relates. And in doing so, she reveals a deeper form of power, feminine power, rooted in mediation, intuition, and sacred presence. It's a confrontation, yes, but not one of violence. It's symbolic of what happens when self-awareness meets chaos without judgment. That lion isn't evil. It's untamed. And that's a crucial distinction. The instincts are part of human nature. They aren't problems to solve, but forces to understand. Suppress them, and you get passive aggression or explosive rage. Overindulge them, and you fall into obsession or addiction. But tame them? That's where you find personal strength. Not the showy kind that demands applause, but the quiet kind that holds firm when life tests you. That's why the lion isn't chained, it's connected. There's trust in that bond. Look closer and you'll see it. This isn't just about the beast. It's about the one who dares to approach it with compassion. The woman's gentle hand near its mouth isn't just symbolic, it's revolutionary. It says, I see your danger and I choose to stay. And isn't that the heart of shadow work? To sit beside your rage without flinching? To acknowledge your desire without shame? In a culture obsessed with control, that kind of spiritual growth is radical and deeply healing. You want to practice? Try this. The next time you feel triggered, angry, aroused, overwhelmed, don't push it away. Breathe into it. Imagine that lion beside you, panting, pacing, confused. Sit with it. Speak softly to it. Let it know you're listening. That's what Jung meant by taming the beast. It's not about shrinking your fire. It's about learning to carry it without burning down the house. This is how psychic alchemy begins. You can start with your breath, your journal, or even a piece of music that mirrors the storm. The Strength card shows us that power without domination is possible, that the beast responds not to chains, but to understanding. And the feminine energy within all of us, no matter our gender, holds this ancient secret. Through softness, it subdues. Through presence, it transforms. But the lion isn't done teaching us yet, because before we can fully integrate him into our psychic system, we have to understand where that wildness lives inside the mind. Psychological integration of instincts. You can't outrun your instincts. You can distract yourself, repress them, or disguise them under layers of civilized behavior, but eventually they'll kick down the door. That's the warning and the wisdom of Jungian psychology. These unconscious forces don't vanish just because we pretend they're not there. On the contrary, when ignored, they gain power. They show up as sudden rage, irrational anxiety, or that aching emptiness you can't quite name. The lion doesn't disappear. It paces in the dark, waiting for an opening. Integration, then, isn't about taming in the sense of control. It's about acceptance. It's realizing that your inner beast isn't your enemy. It's your ally. When you repress sexuality, it doesn't die. It leaks into your thoughts, your relationships, your self-image. When you ignore fear, it controls your choices in secret. But when you turn toward these instincts with compassion, something changes. You begin to see them not as threats, but as messages. This is the path of the alchemist, not the soldier. Psychic healing requires contact. That means feeling the feelings you've been avoiding. Crying when the tears come. Screaming when the body trembles with rage. It's messy. It's human. And it's sacred. You're not breaking down, you're breaking open. Every strong person you admire, they've been here. They've stared into the abyss of their own shadow and stayed long enough to recognize its shape. That's real self-development. Not perfection, but wholeness. Not power over, but power with. Want to practice this integration? Pay attention to your body. It speaks before the mind can catch up. Where does tension live in you? Your jaw, your gut, your fists? That's the lion growling. Take 10 minutes daily to just sit and scan your body. Breathe into those spots. Let whatever emotion arises just be there. Don't fix it, just witness it. This practice alone can unlock psychic energy you didn't know you were wasting on suppression. It's a form of inner dialogue, a new language between you and your wild self. Psychological integration doesn't make you less human. It makes you fully human. It takes the fragmented pieces of your psyche and pulls them into harmony. That doesn't mean you're never triggered again. It means you know what to do when it happens. And this is only the beginning. Because once you've opened the gate to the lion, you'll find you're not alone in this inner world. There are ancient stories, mythical patterns, and goddesses whispering in the shadows. Mythical parallels and the power of the feminine. Myths don't just entertain, they encode truths the conscious mind can't grasp on its own. When we look at tales like Beauty and the Beast, Leda and the Swan, or Europa and the Bull, we're not just seeing fantasy, we're watching the psyche unfold through archetype. The feminine doesn't just encounter the animal or divine masculine, she engages it, transforms it. And that's the hidden magic of the Strength card. She doesn't slay the beast, she relates to it. Through presence and curiosity, she alchemizes fear into psychic integration. Take Leda and Zeus, for example. Yes, it's a troubling myth, but behind the shock lies a powerful metaphor. The collision between the wild instinct and the receptive feminine principle. These stories show the confrontation not as a battle of wills, but as a symbolic act of transformation. The feminine becomes the vessel through which the primal is shaped into something conscious. This is more than storytelling, it's alchemical psychology. It's what happens inside you every time you engage your desires without letting them rule you. Think of Artemis, too, the virgin huntress, untouched by civilization, fiercely protective of her own wildness. When Actaeon stumbles into her sacred space and sees her naked, he's torn apart by his own hounds. Again, the myth isn't moralizing. It's revealing the consequences of violating the unconscious without reverence. The feminine archetype is a guardian of sacred instinct. And when she's ignored, the ego suffers. That's why strength requires respect, not dominance. That's why transformation can't be rushed. It must be earned through presence. Want to explore this mythic terrain for yourself? Start by reading Robert Graves or Joseph Campbell. Study how myths from all cultures hold patterns of psychic growth and individuation. Then look at your own dreams and desires. What symbols repeat? Which animals or divine figures visit your sleep? That's your inner mythology trying to speak. You don't need to analyze everything. You just need to listen with your soul, not your intellect. Art, dance, storytelling, these are all bridges back to the mythic world within you. These stories aren't just old, they're eternal. They play out every time a person meets their inner animal with compassion, or lets their anima lead them into the forest of the unknown. Myth shows us that the feminine isn't weak. It's the force that civilizes the wild without killing it. But there's still more to that lion than we've seen so far. Because the same instinct that brings us power can also pull us toward destruction if left unchecked. The dual nature of instinct and power. The lion in the Strength card is a double-edged symbol, majestic, radiant, but also dangerous. That's the paradox of instinctual power. It can enlighten or devour. When you tap into your primal energy, you awaken something ancient and electric. It surges through your body like fire. And if you're not ready, if your ego is too inflated or too fragile, it burns instead of illuminates. This is why spiritual growth demands humility. You're not just gaining strength, you're learning how not to be possessed by it. Jung warned that unconscious energies, when not integrated, become autonomous. They take on lives of their own, showing up as projections, compulsions, or delusions of grandeur. That lion can crown you or consume you. Think of religious zeal that turns to fanaticism, or leaders who start with vision and end with tyranny. That's instinct divorced from self-awareness. The same fire that fuels transformation also threatens to engulf the psyche if not balanced by the feminine, by compassion, intuition, and reflection. That's why mystics across cultures stress taming the beast, not unleashing it. Even the alchemical lion, often depicted devouring the sun, represents this inner duality, the way unconscious forces can either dissolve false personality or inflate the shadow. This is serious terrain. If you play with power without anchoring in humility, you're not just dabbling in energy, you're dancing with dragons. That's why the woman in the card holds the lion's jaws gently. Her control isn't force, it's relationship. To work with this power, start simple. Monitor your reactions in moments of emotional intensity. Notice when you feel the need to dominate, to seduce, to impress. These are your lions stirring. Instead of indulging or suppressing them, pause. Ask, what's really beneath this impulse? Journal your findings. Practice breathwork to recenter when overwhelmed. Study traditions that treat energy with respect, like Taoism or Kundalini Yoga. These paths teach how to channel psychic energy safely, through discipline, not denial. The Strength card doesn't warn against power, it invites you to wield it wisely. The lion is noble when honored, dangerous when ignored, and divine when integrated. This is the paradox. The same instinct that elevates you can also drag you into madness. And just when you think you've got it under control, life throws another curve, this time from the culture you live in, with its own rules for what's wild and what's refined. Cultural versus natural forces. There's a huge difference between what society calls civilized and what's truly refined within. The Emperor card in the tarot represents the structures of civilization, order, law, external authority. But Strength? She's the culture of the soul. She doesn't build empires, she shapes human nature from the inside out. One dominates the outer world, the other tames the inner beast. And let's be honest, most of what we call maturity in modern life is just repression with a nice haircut. From a Jungian lens, the problem with external civilization is that it often forces people to conform without integrating their deeper instincts. You dress the part, play the role, follow the rules, but inside, the lion still paces. That's why so many successful people feel hollow. Because true personal growth doesn't come from obeying norms. It comes from doing the shadow work, facing your fear, your sexuality, your rage, and finding a way to express them consciously. That's the strength cards kind of culture. This is where alchemy offers real gold. The idea isn't to kill the beast, but to transform it. Culture, in this inner sense, means taking the raw material of the psyche, unconscious instincts, emotional triggers, primal desires, and slowly refining them through awareness. It's a process, not a performance. And no, you won't find this in most corporate HR trainings. You'll find it in dreams, in therapy, in deep conversations, in moments of silence where you feel your soul whisper, "There's more to you than this." Want to bridge this inner culture with your outer life? Start by being honest about where you're performing. Is your kindness genuine or socially expected? Do you act confident, or are you overcompensating for fear? Try keeping a weekly authenticity audit. Write down moments where you felt fake versus moments you felt aligned. Then go deeper. What were you protecting in the fake moments? That's where inner refinement begins. You're not trying to be perfect, you're trying to be true. The Strength card tells us that culture doesn't begin in cities or institutions. It begins in the quiet space where you meet yourself with compassion. It's not about rules, but relationship, especially with the parts of you that feel too wild, too much, too loud. Because if you don't build a bridge to that inner wilderness, it'll come out sideways. And speaking of that inner wilderness, there's a beast inside you that's been walking with you since birth, and it's not going anywhere. The necessity of relating to the inner animal. Here's the truth no one tells you. Your inner animal isn't a phase to outgrow, it's a lifelong companion. You were born with it, and you'll die with it. The lion in the Strength card isn't just a symbol. It's you, stripped of social filters and polite fictions. It's hunger, fear, lust, anger, but also passion, vitality, and instinctual knowing. Most people try to ignore this part of themselves, hoping it'll just shut up and behave. But the lion doesn't vanish, it waits. And the more you deny it, the more it roars when you least expect. This isn't about indulging the beast. It's about building a relationship with it that starts with recognizing that your inner animal has its own language, emotion, body sensation, dream symbols. If you constantly override your gut for the sake of approval or routine, you'll lose your connection to that inner power. And let's be real, that's when life starts to feel robotic. You wake up, go through the motions, but the spark's gone. Why? Because you've locked the lion in the basement, and lions don't thrive in cages. One of the most accessible paths to this reconnection is through dream work. Pay attention to recurring animals in your dreams. Are they wild or wounded? Chasing or hiding? These are fragments of the psyche, asking for attention. Another powerful method is movement, dance, martial arts, even primal screaming. Anything that bypasses intellect and taps directly into instinct. You're not trying to be dramatic. You're trying to listen in a language older than words. This is psychic healing through embodiment. Want something simple to start today? Take 15 minutes alone, no music, no phone, just you and your breath. Ask your body, where do I feel wildness right now? Where is fear hiding? What is lust trying to say? Let answers rise without judgment. Then write them down. This isn't therapy, it's relationship building. You're learning how to relate to your inner lion not as a threat, but as a sacred source of self-awareness. And once the lion feels seen, it stops roaring and starts guiding. You'll never be fully alive until you stop treating parts of yourself like enemies. The Strength card reminds us that taming the beast isn't about muzzling it, it's about dancing with it. That wild thing inside you holds ancient wisdom, animal grace, and unfiltered truth. But to access it fully, you'll have to go where the mind can't follow, into the dream world, where the lion waits beside the sleeping soul. Dreams as a path to the animal soul. In dreams, the rules of civilization dissolve, and that's where your inner animal comes out to play. The conscious mind may try to keep the lion locked away during the day, but at night, the unconscious opens the door. Suddenly, you're being chased through forests, speaking with serpents, or watching a tiger stare you down. These aren't random images. They're messages from the psyche, encoded in symbol. They're how your deeper self says, "You've forgotten something essential." And the Strength card? It reminds you to listen. Think of Rousseau's Sleeping Gypsy, a peaceful figure resting under the moon while a lion silently watches. It's not a threat, it's a guardian, a reminder that even in rest, your instincts are with you. Dreaming is one of the few states where the ego softens enough to let the animal soul speak. This is where psychic energy reorganizes itself. That's why Jung insisted on dream interpretation, not as fortune-telling, but as a method of self-awareness and integration. The dream world is your soul's private language. Most people either dismiss their dreams or overanalyze them. The real magic happens in between, when you observe with curiosity, not control. Don't try to decode every lion or snake like a puzzle. Instead, ask, how did I feel in that moment? Was the animal wild or wounded? Did it frighten me or comfort me? That's where transformation lives, not in theory, but in felt experience. Your dreams are where the divine feminine often appears, not as lecture, but as presence. Soft, persistent, and deeply intuitive. Want to start working with your dreams? Keep a journal beside your bed. As soon as you wake, write down everything, no matter how fragmented or strange. Over time, you'll notice patterns, recurring symbols, familiar settings, animals that keep showing up. That's your personal mythology forming. You might even start dialoguing with these figures in meditation or visualization. Artists like Carl Jung did this with active imagination, allowing the dream to continue consciously. This is how you court the anima, through inner attention. Dreams aren't separate from life, they're life through another lens. They're not illusions, they're invitations. And when you learn to honor them, they reveal a layer of reality your waking mind can't access. That lion in your sleep, it's the same one from the tarot, the same one pacing behind your smile, and the woman beside it. She's there too, ready to guide you not away from your instincts, but through them into the alchemical fire of conscious transformation. The feminine as a mediator of transformation. The woman in the Strength card isn't just symbolic, she's functional. She doesn't represent an idea. She is the process. Her role as mediator isn't passive or decorative, it's alchemical. In her calm presence, we find the key to self-mastery. She doesn't tame the lion by stripping it of its power, but by inviting it into relationship. Her fingers near its jaw, her gaze unflinching. That's what it looks like when fear and instinct are met with love rather than control. That's how inner conflict becomes transformation. Without her, the lion either devours or withers. With her, it evolves. She doesn't act as the ego does, trying to dominate, suppress, or flee. Instead, she holds a space where duality can dissolve. She is the feminine principle in action, bridging opposites, healing splits, softening boundaries between the civilized and the wild. This is what Jung called psychic integration, when the unconscious isn't just managed, but welcomed. The lion doesn't vanish. It becomes an ally, and through her, inner power becomes conscious. We see this pattern in so many forms, Mary and the dragon beneath her feet, Isis reassembling Osiris, Quanine calming storms with a whisper. Across cultures, the feminine doesn't fight the chaos. It embraces it and brings it into order through relationship. That's the wisdom strength offers. Domination may control, but only compassion transforms. And let's not forget, it takes tremendous strength to remain calm in the presence of the wild. That's not weakness. That's mastery. To work with this energy in real life, stop trying to fix your emotions. Try instead to sit with them. Set a timer for 5 minutes, breathe, and let yourself feel what's there: fear, lust, anger, sadness. Don't push it away. Don't label it. Just stay. That's what the woman in the card does. She stays. And in her staying, the lion feels seen. This is the space where mysticism, psychic healing, and emotional intelligence converge. This is where the unconscious begins to trust. The lion may roar, but the woman never flinches. Because she knows the truth. It's not about slaying the dragon. It's about walking beside it without losing your center. She is the last threshold in the strength card, the gatekeeper of real enlightenment. But she isn't the end of the journey. She's the door to something deeper still. A journey that continues far beyond the archetype, into the architecture of tarot itself.